Jesus' name, amen. So, welcome to Life Talk Live, okay, here at Center Beach Bible Church at CBC. Tonight's as are continuing with the 5 life killers, and our topic for tonight is jealousy. Jealousy, the green-eyed monster. The green-eyed monster, sometimes called, and how jealousy can create anxiety and depression. We never associate those two, but I'm going to show you how it can. And how jealousy can destroy any promise of hope or joy in your life. Oh, and by the way, I was thinking, remember I said we had 5 life killers? Well, we're going to make it 6, and we're going to add malice. You know, I use that word a lot. The Bible speaks about the word malice. It's a word from our English dictionary, and we never really define it. It's a very interesting emotion, and we're going to add that. I think that's going to be number 6, malice. What is it really? But anyway, tonight, I think this is going to end up being a 2-part series because I don't want to go too fast. I want interaction from you guys because I want to take this emotion deeper than anyone's ever taken it before, because I believe it doesn't get the attention that it deserves because it does so much damage. You see, I don't think we comprehend the depth, the pain, the torment, the damage, the evil, the ugliness that is envy and jealousy. Envy and jealousy. Now, by a show of hands, how many here have ever been envy or had jealous feelings in your past? I'll put my hand up. Sally's putting her up slowly. Okay. How many have been recently struggling with it within the last year? I have. Okay. It's a tough one, people. That's a tough one. Jennifer Dawn from Florida says all the time. All the time. People, listen to me. I have been under a lot of torment in my life. I've had a lot of vices, things that really consumed me, and I still do. The battles are always there. But I tell you, in my list of my struggles with drinking and trying to stop drinking, of drugs and trying to stop the drugging and the partying, of smoking cigarettes. You know how hard it was to stop smoking cigarettes? Wow. For me, it was harder than stopping drinking. And porn addiction. I wrote a book. My first book was about my struggle with porn addiction, sexual addiction, pride. I mean, those were really heavy things for me. Probably will always be part of my DNA. But I don't think anything has stolen from me more joy and more peace than jealousy. It's a monster, people. Hey, Andrew, thanks for coming. Charlene, I see is on here. Miss anybody else new? Okay. Yeah. People, jealousy is a monster. And if you don't see it for how major it is, and you do not understand its poison, it will forever control you and make your life a living misery. Misery. Think about this, and as I was putting this together, think about this. What was and is the driving force at the end of the day of Satan? Jealousy. Envy. Who was he jealous of? God. He was jealous of God. Yeah, sure, pride hangs out in the same closet as jealousy. It's like a tick that hangs on our soul, but envy is the blood that sucks it out. But let's look at these words, because they, there's, and it's I love to study words and to look at their definitions. And sometimes I go into the original Hebrew, Greek. Sometimes I just look in the dictionary. But let's look at these two words, envy and jealousy, and let's see, are they the same? So let's look at the word envy first, from the Webster's Dictionary. A feeling of discontent and ill will because of another person's advantages and possessions. Number two, a desire for some advantage, quality that another person has. You can be envious of what someone is, their whole persona, their looks, their personality. That was number two. Number three, an object of envious feelings. And number four, ill will or spite. Envy is tied together with spite. Spite is purposely doing something dark or nasty against someone because you are envious of that one. And you might not even know you're doing it. But let's look at the word jealousy. The words seem to be, the same word. They seem to ride in the same pickup truck, so to speak. But what is jealousy? And you know what's interesting? I wasn't going to look into it. I said, but let me just look anyway. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting, the definition of jealousy. Because it's not quite the same. It's close, but not quite the same. Number one, jealousy. Very watchful or careful in guarding or keeping of one's rights. You are very sensitive about what is done to you because it raises these feelings up. And what would be an example? When you are a jealous person, you are easily poked by posts on social media that affect you that way, that you might be jealous about. On social media, because we see this, and I've learned myself that certain posts that people make can poke me and provoke these things. Meaning constantly seeing if who you are envious of, what they're doing or not doing. You always check, you have a good day, and then you see something that they said, or maybe they're at the beach, or they're hanging out and have a good time, and you're like, yeah, bum. Okay, all of a sudden, you're jealous of them. Number two, resentfully suspicious of a rival or a rival's influence. You become suspicious. You're always on alert. If you're jealous of someone, you are hypersensitive of everything in their life. You hear something in the news about them or whatever at the ball game or at the PTA meeting, and who you were talking about that person? What? Did they screw up? I want to know because I hate them. Okay. Number three. Oh, back to number two. There's a part two to that. Resentfully envious with jealous rage. Something can poke you when you hear something that actually puts you in a rage, a jealous rage. Number three, this is very interesting. When you are jealous, you require exclusive loyalty, meaning, in simple terms, you will not share that person. You will not share anything about that situation. It's either I have it or no one has it. And I was thinking, wow. And I had to think about myself, is that true? And I had to say, yeah. Yeah. I'll give you an example. And you guys know how I feel about honesty. I'm a pastor, and I'm honest, guys. I like it when people say, "Hey, Pastor Scott, you're really great," and we get a letter in the mail. I got a letter today from somebody and praising me, and it kind of, honestly, it pokes your ego. But if that same person next week says, "Oh, and I heard this other pastor, he was awesome, Pastor Scott, you got to listen to him," all of a sudden, you have this little bit of a, like, why am I feeling this? Because my loyalty has been compromised. I want exclusive loyalty to me. You may not listen to anybody else. Isn't that silly? But it is. Marion's laughing. But what does it all mean, people? Well, envy. And we're going to, this is my putting these two things together. What's the difference of envy and jealousy, and putting it in an idiom of some sort or a phrase? Envy is the flatbed truck that carries our desires to have what others have. Jealousy is the load we wish to dump on those who have what we don't have. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's all I could come up with. But anyway, people, jealousy. And when I speak of the two, I'm going to use envy and jealousy back and forth. I'm going to use those two words synonymous with the same thing because they basically are. So if I say envy in one sentence and I say jealousy in another, it's really the same. But let's just say this. Number one, jealousy has many emotional siblings. It has many family members. What comes, and let me ask you guys out there, you guys put some meat into this. What other emotions are family members to jealous and envy? Anybody have any ideas? What comes to mind? What does envy and jealousy bring out? What is their ugly twin sister or twin brother? Okay, I have a big list here. I have pride. Jennifer says hate, absolutely. Anger, bitterness, spite, Marion said, absolutely, spite. Short temper. You'll find someone who is in a jealous state, or when you're in a jealous state, or when I'm in a jealous state, we become very short-tempered, very easy to provoke us. Lying. We tend to lie to hide our jealousies. We embellish how we're doing because we are jealous of how they're doing. Sad faces. You can tell somebody who lives in the issue or under the stranglehold of jealousy and envy, they have a sad face. You can read it on their face. Eyes with daggers. Have you ever seen somebody with eyes with daggers? If eyes could talk? You ever see isn't it amazing? God has made the human, face, the persona, or countenance that you can read it. Isn't it? No, when everybody was reading masks, wasn't it interesting? You can still tell what people were thinking by their eyes. Happy eyes, mean eyes, lustful eyes. You can see it. Okay. Thomas is here. When you hear misfortune of others, yeah, Tom, that is great. And we're going to get to that. See, that's really smart. He said a side emotion is joy. Well, joy should be good, but joy when the people that you're envious of get theirs. Isn't that interesting? And he's actually jumping ahead, but that's very, very an astute observation, Tom. Right? You step on them. We see Marion said uncontrollable. Yes, it is uncontrollable. And we might not get to it tonight, but I'm going to give you 5 things that you need to do and 5 steps that you need to take to get this under control, because probably it might be one of the hardest emotions that we have, people. Also, what comes along with jealousy and envy is the desire to see others fail, the desire to do better than others and for them to see it, flaunting your success when someone you're envious of is in the area. Okay, let's just say you ran into an old high school person that you were always envious of, and you happen to be driving in a cool car, and you're like, hey, look what I'm driving, right? Flaunting your success. Hey, handyman is here. Hey, Fernando. Okay, so we can see what these things bring up, and people, worse than that, these feelings are often hidden under a veil of false flattery and sarcasm. People, what is sarcasm? It is truth hidden under humor. Sarcasm is actually saying what you really feel with a little to it. Okay? Oh, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. No. And you know what's interesting? This Bible says, do not take part in foolish jesting. Do you know when we joke and we poke people and we tease, do you know teasing people should not be a part of a Christian's life? Teasing, I know when I grew up, I hated being teased. It hurt me. And I see people teasing people. The people who are getting teased are never happy about it. No one likes getting teased, but we tend to do it. False flatteries, and the Bible speaks about the sin of being a false flatterer. That means making believe you are so happy for someone that you really can't stand. It's the big show because you do it because you have to say the right thing. People, you know what? We'd be better to keep our mouths shut. If you really don't feel happy about someone, don't make it up. Be honest, because God already knows. And along with all of these comes that word that we're going to talk about at the end of this series, malice. I'm really excited about malice. I talk about malice a lot, and I really want to delve into it because a lot of us ride that malice horse, and we don't even know it. People, jealousy and envy, it's not a joke. We think it's not a big deal. Everyone's a little bit envious. Anyone's a little jealous. It's big. It's way bigger than we ever imagined. And it can be possibly the core of your depression. I'm going to show you tonight how it can. How it can actually cause anxiety and a lack of peace in your life. It could make you become a very dark person. And you know what also is very scary? Many people who struggle with it don't even know they have it. They don't even know they are envious and jealous. They think it's something else. They think it's that person. They think that person is my problem. No, that person has nothing to do with you and your problem. It's a hidden thing. What also makes envy and jealousy so bad is it's almost impossible to overcome in your own strength. In fact, it's impossible to overcome in your own strength. Impossible. It's something that we often don't think we have. It's something when someone says to us, "You're jealous," it provokes rage. How dare you call me jealous of you? We rarely admit we are envious or jealous of anyone. It is something that will suck all the joy out of your life, all of your life, your entire life, and you won't even know it. And sadly, Christians, does it affect us? Yeah, it certainly does. And we often wonder why. Gee, why don't I have the joy of the Lord? I'm not lusting, I'm not drinking, we go through this ridiculous list. And God says, those things, they're small potatoes. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But of the cure, people, the cure, and why this issue must be eradicated with absolute prejudice, okay? Because it's an infestation of cancer cells unto your soul. And I was thinking, and you probably heard this before, but I think we need to dig in deeper. There is a person in the Bible who God used as an example of how far envy can take a person down. Does anybody know who was destroyed by envy? Destroyed him. Drove him insane. People, envy can drive us mad to the point of insanity. Yep, Fernando, you're right. Saul. King Saul. Now, King Saul in the Bible, he was once a very happy man. He was a God-loving man. He was king of Israel. He had the favor of God over his battles. He had a special prophet, Samuel, who would give him direct revelation of what Samuel would say, God said, Saul, do this, do that. Wouldn't you love that? Saul was highly favored. He was a megastar, and God loved him. But he was driven mad, actually went insane, I believe, by the success of someone he actually was really close to and loved. They broke bread together at the same table because he hated the one he once loved, David. And what's interesting, David didn't do anything wrong. And for a time, David really didn't even know why Saul was so upset with him. But what happened? When David became more loved and more famous than Saul, Saul was driven to dangerous, obsessive desires, ending, many believe, with taking his own life. He took envy to the full extent. Now, what did he want to do? He wanted to kill David. He wanted to literally murder him. Now, we might not take it to that extreme, but we think it in our minds, people. God says, so as a man thinks, so he is. What does Jesus say? You think about being with that woman or man, if you're a girl, whatever, you've already committed the sin. You already slept with them. You thought about it, you did it. As we think, so we are. You have hatred for someone, you already killed them in your mind. Saul would lie awake in bed, obsessed with David's fame. Have any of you out there, okay, now this is getting really deep. I'm going to admit my faults. Have you ever lost sleep because of envy? I have. Seeing someone rising above me or having what I always wanted, I would lose sleep over it. It took up so much space in my mind that it became a pretty ugly thing. Thank you for those being honest here. And and I've said this before, Often when we are envious of other people or other things, doesn't be people, or what they have or what they're like, they go through life fine. They don't even know we're destroying our own lives. They don't even know. When you're up in bed at night tossing and turning because you ran into somebody who's doing great or that it's driving you crazy, they're not laying up in bed thinking about you. They're not wasting their time. But you are. And what's the cost, people? What's the cost? Well, what did it cost Saul? Lost his kingdom, lost his throne, lost his favor with God, lost his contact with God. Remember, he cried out to Samuel, God's not talking to you. It drove Saul to the occult. He became so desperate to hear because God turned his back on him, that he started going to fortune tellers. He went to a witch, an astrologer. And he ended up falling on his own sword, which many believe means committing suicide. Let's take a look at our comments here. That's funny, Fernando. Coffee too. Yep, it is humbling, right? Because we don't like these feelings. And guys, I've said this before. We have a little church here, and we don't have many people who stay around, and I blame myself because and I've tried to change, but I can't. I have to be true to myself, and I have this thing. I talk about things that we probably shouldn't talk about, and they're uncomfortable. But I first talk about them with me, and God has made me to discuss things with myself, with Him, that I would say, God, I don't want to look at that. He goes, look at it. It's uncomfortable, God. It's ugly. I don't like what I see in me. Look at it. And sometimes I have to bring out these things. And you're going to be uncomfortable tonight because we're not even close to done. You're going to be uncomfortable because we're going to have to look deep, deep. What is Tom? Tom says any negative emotion, hate, anger, jealousy, etc., is a chunk in the armor and an open door for the devil. Bring it ceaselessly to God as many times and for as long as it takes. Very well, Thomas. You're very wise. But let's go to the answer. You guys want the answer to this? You want to know how to do it? Because I have to tell you, it's taken me a long time, but I'm a slow learner, and I'm getting a victory. And I'm going to give you a couple of pretty intense things to do, but they work. Okay. So what do? What is that? 5 and then 5. There's going to be 5 steps and then 5 confessions. Okay. Okay. Let's go. Here's the steps. Step number 1, people. Realize that envy is a sin. It is a sin, people. It is a sin. Sin, sin, sin. And what does it make envy? Number 2, a prayer blocker. If you do not get this taken care of, you are praying to a brazen sky. It's like, you know what? You're walking around with a black umbrella. It's a beautiful sunny day. Everyone's on the beach enjoying the sun, and you are in the shade, and you don't understand why. Well, everyone's going, you got that umbrella over your head. You're not going to get any sun. Envy, because it's a sin, is a prayer blocker. God, as the good father, is going to say, you could pray for all these other issues all you want. I'm not listening. You've got to get this repaired. Number 3, envy is a joy stealer. It makes you miserable. You can't be happy. You won't be happy. You can make believe you're happy. You can put a smile on your face. You can teach a study on envy and tell everybody how bad it is, and yet still live with it. Number 4, envy can lead to anxiety and depression. How? How does envy lead to anxiety and depression? Well, we can see depression. Yeah, you're miserable. You're unhappy. You're in a state of being decompressed. But anxiety, it robs your peace. Thank you, Sally. It's perfect. When your peace is taken, anxiety comes in. That's it. No peace means anxiety. You're just not happy, even in your own skin. In your own skin. Okay. Number 5, you need to understand how ugly it really is. Understand how ugly it really is. Because now we're going to expose this, people. This is going to be the uncomfortable part. Envy is actually you and I wishing passionately to have or take away with what another has. That's ugly. Whether they deserve it or not. Whether they worked hard for it. It doesn't matter. It might be the affections, in broken marriages, divorces, when the kids favor the father more than the mother, or the mother more than the father. Can it bring us to the place where we are at? Let's say if I'm a father and I'm divorced and I see my kids hating their mother, and that makes me happy. And when I see the kids liking me better, Dad, I like you better than Mom, that makes me happy. That's ugly, people. That's ugly. And how many divorced parents would foster into their children the seeds of your dad is no good, I'm the good one. Your dad is no good, or vice versa. Your mom is no good, I'm the good one. Planting seeds. Your cause, it's like secondary smoke. It's secondary sin. Thank you, people, for your honesty here. I see the post you're posting. So how do we overcome it? So those were the 5 steps that we need to first. It's like, when you're going to bake a cake, you first have to get the ingredients, and then the next is to put it in the oven and mix them up. Okay, so overcome it. 5 things to overcome it. Okay, number 1. And this is pretty hard to do. It's pretty hard to do. Confess that you are an envious person. You don't even like saying it. It's like, ugh, I don't like saying that. I am a jealous, envious person. And number 2, lay it out in all of its perverted perversion before God. This is what I mean. Lay it out in all of its perverted perversion. That probably doesn't make any sense, but it sounded cool. Okay? Example of number 2 is to get alone with God and say, Lord, I hate that so-and-so in my life has what I always wanted. I hate it. I hate that they're doing better than me. I hate that I would actually like to take it away if I could from them. If I could, I would. I hate that I'm not loved by the ones that I want to be loved by. I hate it, God. And worse, Lord, oh, worse, my God, is I wish deep down that my enemy would crumble and fall apart, and that I would be crowned victor and winner, and I would get what they have that I always wanted. In Jesus' name, forgive me. Wow. You've really got to come to a place where you want healing to get to say those words. And if you do, and if you can, you just stepped on the first step ladder of maturity, people. I've been using that word a lot. Maybe we should do a study on maturity. Because you know what I found out? See if you guys are the same as me. You know, it's kind of funny. Me and my childhood friend John, that I talk about a lot, that we grew up with. We always used to say, like, when we became, like, we were like 17, 18, we were thinking like we were going to become like men, and we were like 21, and we used to say, I don't feel like a man. I think I'm just a kid man. And you know what's funny? Deep down, I'm really a child. I'm really a child playing in a sandbox. And I don't want to share my toys. It's really what it is. I haven't really grown up that much. I would like to think that I'm mature. I shared last week or two ago that I ran into a pastor friend. We were getting our cars worked on, and I walked away, and I really felt convicted. And I go, you know what, God? That pastor is much more mature than I am. After our conversation, I kind of felt childish, because his replies and his wisdom was way better than mine. But it's a good thing to be able to see that. So as I beat myself up a lot, God also gives me a hug and says, but you know it's wrong. That's what makes you a little bit wiser. And I can say, okay, I guess I'll take that, God, as a compliment. I don't know. Number three. Number three. Constantly keep in check your soul when it begins to pop up. Jealousy and envy is one of those things. It's kind of like cancer. It goes into remission, and it'll be gone for a while. And then all of us, you'll be like, hey man, I am no envy. I am no longer envious of that person. I do not think upon them. I have overcome it, until you run into them. Until you hear on social media that they're doing something even greater. And you're like, great. Now I'm back to square one. Number 4. Okay. Big star here. Number 4. Pray for God to teach you. Here it is. To be happy at your enemy's successes. To be happy at another's success. And I'm not talking about make-believe happy. Oh, I'm so happy you met that dream of your life. I always wanted to marry them. I am so happy that you got that car that I always wanted. I am so happy that your kids are just doing fine and my kids are mental cases. I am so happy. No. To actually, and it's people, this is supernatural. You can't do it unless God does it through you. To say, I am happy for them. If you could be happy for those that you're envious of, you've reached a new plateau. To be happy for another person's success. Truly happy. And and what would that be like? You know how you're happy when your kids are doing well? Gee, I wonder, can we ever be envious of our children? Just popped into my mind. Can a father be envious that his son made it higher up in life than he ever did? I bet you there are some dads who are. But most likely we're not. Most likely, and that's the point I was originally heading to, most likely we are very happy when our kids do good, right? Well, you need that type of happiness for someone that you're envious about, and all of a sudden you say, you know what? I'm glad they're happy. I'm glad they're doing good. They deserve this. And I'm happy for them. And I need to be happy for them. And number five, okay? Now you might have heard me say this before, and I usually go over the top with this, and I tell people about it. And it kind of really upsets me because I tell people about this, I drill it into their heads. They say, well, I've got to do that, Pastor. But I don't think really anyone really does, because I've never got any feedback of how this has affected and changed my life. And here it is. I actually happen to have it. And with just, you know what? I'm going to do this to you guys. Should I leave them on a cliffhanger? I'm not going to tell you what number 5 is because we're out of time. Number 5, okay? You're going to have to come back because we have a lot more to talk about. Okay? But I will leave you with this. Okay? Marion's going, no! I will leave you with this. You can beat this. You must beat it. Because if you don't beat it, it'll beat you down. And it will destroy you. And it will come back like a bad cold that doesn't leave. You gotta get past it. And gosh, is it hard. It is so hard. And I've shared before, as life goes on, you're envious of other things. You envy things change over the years. But, I never dreamt that when I became a pastor, that one of my biggest struggles would be envying other pastors. And gosh, people, did I struggle with that for years. And it really made me a bitter pastor. It made me an ugly pastor sometimes. And you know what's interesting? I actually believe that I was so virtuous in my anger and my bitterness and jealousy. And I would love to pat myself on the back and convince myself, no, I had a right to be jealous. I had a right because they don't deserve what they have. I do. I deserve that fame. I deserve that following. I deserve that loyalty. And woe unto anyone who would leave my church and go to someone else's. But I'm over that. And it's so, so sweet. And to be excited for another church's success, another pastor's growth, another pastor who has a book that he published that's doing, I published 3 books, all been flops, never really did anything, but I'm happy that someone else can publish a book and it does good. Now, it doesn't mean, people, and as our song, we're out of time, it doesn't mean that I will never be envious again. Oh, Satan's listening right now. He probably has tomorrow about 10 things that are going to stab me in the gut tomorrow morning. Probably I'll wake up with it. But I know what I have to do. And it's not easy. It's really putting myself not as high as I think I should be. Anyway, we're out of time. Thank you all for joining in. And next week, we're going to get part 2 to 6 life killers, envy A, or envy part B. And what number 5, what is the one thing that has helped me so much in my battle with envy and jealousy. Thank you, everyone. God bless you all. And we can have joy. We can. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.